Welcome, ladies. This is your sixth week of the Retreat Within, and I am so excited because today, for my guest speaker of I See Beyond Thyself, I have the amazing Andrea Bernstein here, who is a master shamanic energy medicine practitioner, which is just wow, incredible. Go ahead and say hi, Andrea.
Hi, everyone. So honored to be here. What a perfect module for me to come in on. To be able to see beyond ourselves is what I live to share in the world. And so I'm super excited to be here. Thank you, Braylon.
Yes, thank you so much for doing this. I am so excited. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so I can introduce Andrea. You guys can get to know her. I'm going to share my screen right here. And we're on Andrea's website. And what she has written for her bio is, for the past 13 years, I have immersed myself in the wisdom teachings, mentored in the healing practices, and have been initiated into the traditions and lineage of the high priests of Peru. I have supported countless clients through my shamanic practice to debug their energetic programs and heal the way their lives have been informed by the past, upgrading their energetic blueprint to align them with the life and the world they know is possible. This ancient wisdom has been offered as a map for us all to become conscious creators of our lives and our world during these uncertain times. When I first began my journey on the path of self-discovery, I couldn't even hear my own voice and was completely disconnected from my body, my desires, and so much of what brings joy, peace, and happiness in life. Though many practices helped me cope, it was the shamanic work that truly shifted my world in the most profound and sustainable ways. This path supported me to reconnect to my passion and gave me the tools, vision, and strength to see my way through the wounds, stories, and limiting beliefs that kept me from sharing what I knew in my heart I was meant to. In fact, I found this work to be so empowering and transformative that soon after the completion of my practitioner training program, I became a staff member at the Four Winds Society Light Body School and assistant to founder Alberto Villoldo, PhD. Since 2010, I have also shared this wisdom through introductory shamanism classes with the University of Utah's lifelong learning students. Both roles have enabled me to translate this body of wisdom in a way that is relevant, easy to digest, and supported by science and functional medicine. Though shamanism may seem foreign, irrelevant, and maybe even intimidating to some in today's world, my soul knew this wisdom, and yours does too. For those of us who came to this life knowing we are here to make a difference, it speaks to us in ways our conditioning has not. It is as close to a magic pill as I have found personally and awakens us to so much more possibility collectively. It is my life's work to pass on these wisdom teachings, to support you to reconnect to your truth and awaken to the full expression of the gifts you came to share, irregardless of your path. The following offering is my first step in sharing this wisdom in the world. I hope it awakens something in you. And this is actually something that we are going to go over towards the end of our interview, where Andrea will explain her course that she's just launched yesterday. So huge to that. So I want to go ahead and get started because as you ladies can see, we have a beautiful woman right here in front of us that is going to share her wisdom with us. And the first thing that I wanted to get started with, Andrea, is I wanted to let you know that in our Evoke course, we have women that are on different parts of their spiritual journey. Some who haven't really connected to spirit, some who are struggling, some who have their wings and they're flying. But I wanted to start with a shaman. I want to know what is a shaman this word that you embrace so much in life? What is it?
Well, you know, shamanism is really the oldest religion in the world, but it's not faith-based on a particular god. It's more transcendental, and it's based on animism, the understanding that everything has a soul, everything is alive. And the shaman is the conduit between the visible and the invisible worlds. And they are able to work with a foot in both, to work from what in our North American, Native American tradition will speak to as that web of life, or that field state that science speaks of. Rather than down here at this place of matter where we're so accustomed to working in the mind and the emotions, the shaman will work at the energetic, to shift the energy and to clear the way that's blocked, to bring balance and harmony back to the individual, the community, the world. And so it's not even a spiritual path, but it's a path of power. It's a path of knowledge where we are able to work from those higher realms of existence and work and deepen our connection with all of life and the helping spirits that are here to support us. And you are just amazing working with these invisible realms. So I'm sure that everybody in the group has been able to kind of experience that. But the reality is that we're all shamans, and you know that's what it said. And it's our conditioning and the way our brains have been wired that keeps us from really opening to that. But we're really all capable of engaging with these realms. So that shaman is the one who goes out into those invisible realms and brings that pure reservoir of healing energy that always exists, no matter how much in our lives we have had wounding or trauma and feel broken and debilitated, and they bring balance back.
So my question is, as you're speaking, you say that we're all shamans, all of us are. And I feel as a medium in today's society, the spirit world has kind of taught me that in order to be a shaman, I'd have to do X, Y, and Z, correct? So is there something specific? Is there a training that I'd have to go through, or anyone would have to go through, in order to carry the title as a shaman? Or what's this process like?
So I actually don't even call myself a shaman. I call myself a shamanic practitioner. To me, someone who, the indigenous people that have this throughout their lineage, that it's been passed down throughout the generations. To me, those are the shaman. I have been initiated into the lineage, which for me has allowed me to connect with this wisdom, and I carry the ancestors in the lineage of this cosmology, which particularly from where I've been initiated is from the Peruvian cosmology and body of wisdom, descendants of the Inca. But really, when I speak to working from that place of that field state in those invisible realms, and I say that we're all shaman, it's that we're all able to work from that place. And yes, we need reins. And yes, many of us are naturally gifted to be able to access those realms. But to me, it's clearing everything that keeps you from being able to tune in super clearly and cleanly. And this is where, when I first began, I was kind of like the healer's healer and the teacher's teacher, where so many people have these natural gifts, but they need some reins and some framework to be able to work safely, because there's a lot of less than desirable energies out there in these invisible realms as well. And we need to be able to work safely and cleanly and not project ourselves, and our stuff all over other people. Many of the women in this group might have had that experience working with psychics where it's like, oh, I have that too. And then, you've got an hour session and they're spending like half of that time telling you about their issues. Like that's not cool. We're here to align ourselves to be able to sit and get quiet enough and still enough to hear the whispers in the wind. It's said with everything that we're facing right now that everything we need is here. All of the answers to anything that we could ask is already inside of us. And those ancestors and those helping spirits are just right there knocking on our door, wanting to come in. And from my perspective, it's about clearing everything that does not allow you to work from that place of your essential self. So that's a long way around your question. Yes, there's definitely specific training. I've trained for the last 13 years and I still consider myself to be, learning. And the most important thing that we can do is to clear everything that is what we are not. And that's our cultural conditioning, our familial conditioning, our religious conditioning, and everything we're taught to believe is real, because we're seeing single digits to low teens of reality with our five senses.
Everything that you're saying, it speaks to me so deeply and I resonate with it. Actually, yesterday, or actually on Sunday, when we were discussing this week's call for I See Beyond Thyself, me, Chelsea, and Mikkel, she actually asked me a powerful question. She was like, Braylon, what is one thing that you want every single woman to know in this course, in your readings, with your gift? What's that one thing that you want them to know? And I said exactly what you just said, that we all have everything within us already. The answers are already there. And it goes back to peeling back the onion, right? Taking back those layers and seeing what serves you. So my next question is, how would you advise our women in our course to consciously discover the gifts they have inside of them? Because I have a lot of women who will tell me, Braylon, I'm meditating and it's not working. Braylon, I'm trying to speak to my angels and it's not working. I'm trying this and it's not working. And something that I try to explain is that's their work. It's their life work to find out what their gift is. I can teach them, but I can't give them the exact answers. So you, with the work and experience that you've gone through in your lifetime, how would you advise these women to consciously discover their gifts?
So, that actually is the work that I do. I mean, my natural gift was to see people in their highest essential self. And so the shamanic tools for me just gave those tools to be able to support people to do it. And again, it is about peeling that onion. It's not about getting another degree or taking another training. We're born with what we need that's inside of us. And in fact, we've raised our hand and it's like, okay, who wants to come in with the emotionally abusive father, the totally hopeless mother, and powerless mother, and going to go through these things, and it's going to have this trauma and this abuse, except you're going to come and you're going to share this. And you raised your hand and you said, me. And so we become the greatest teachers of what we heal on ourselves. So my advice would be to embark on that journey of healing yourself, because you turn those wounds into sources of strength, and that is what you are sharing in the world. So it's this really beautiful way of of bringing your most authentic self. And I want to touch on that place where you speak of, I'm trying meditation and I'm doing it wrong, because one of my first steps in my own journey was as a yoga teacher, as a meditation teacher. I have certifications in both. Now, I want people to understand that somatically in the body, we actually store the memories of the traumas. And our body holds the memories of everything that's heavy that's ever happened to us. So as we begin to step into these stillness practices and come back inside, because so much of our life is about that outward and looking outside of ourselves for answers, as we start to bring it in and we start to reset that fight or flight, which most of us have been in extended states of fight or flight for decades, right? We've had that trauma. In order to cope with life, we've kind of gotten even outside of our body. A lot of my clients, and I'm sure a lot of the women in this course kind of know that feeling of like, I don't even feel like I'm in my body. And in order to be able to truly make the changes at this literal place, we've got to be able to reset that fight or flight. We've got to be able to clear that somatic experience that's caught in our cells. And as we begin to, they bubble up like water boiling to the top. So as we go into our stillness practice, and as we start to reset and come to that place of stillness, that's where the twitching happens, or the laundry list starts playing, and it's not about going to that place of not thinking. It's just about learning how not to attach and go on that epic sidetrack, and be turning it over in our head. It's about allowing it to just come up and release. Because from this perspective, again, everything that is heavy is stored, but it's all just energy. It's not good or bad from like the way we see it. It's just heavy or light. And it's that heavier energy that just has to release. And behind it is the pure essence of the truth. So this is what I find when people are like, I'm doing it wrong. It's not working. Yes, it's working, but you've got to get through all those layers.
Yes. We spoke about this in probably every single live class that we've had, where I've explained that the awakening and activation period is not glamorous. It's not a magic pill that happens overnight. Where I explained this 7-week course it still continues. The work is still there, even though the 7 weeks is ending and we're coming to a close. It doesn't come to a close for you as an individual. Your work continues. How would you recommend to these women how would you tell them to release the heavy weight that they carry?
Somehow in our society, we come to this belief that we're not supposed to feel this way, right? And we need to take a pill when we're feeling depressed or have anxiety. But from these ancient understandings, whether it be shamanism or yoga, the body's wisdom is greater than any wisdom that the intellect could ever know. So you got to feel it to heal it. And the beauty that I love the most about, the shamanic ways of doing that is we don't have to process it from these denser energies of the literal or the emotional to process it at the mental or the psychological, but to completely shift your engagement in the world and see it all as energy. Like, this is, to me, what that shamanic cosmology brings to people, to change the way we walk in the world, the way we see everything about the world, is it's just energy. So if you allow yourself to see it, it's just right on the other side, excuse me, of feeling it, that the release happens. And it's like, when we have those heavier traumas and experiences, and I'm probably skipping ahead, from the understanding of this place, of this body of wisdom, is, not only is there a field that surrounds all existence, this web of life that we are all connected to, that is consciousness. We are consciousness. And, we are made from consciousness, and we are engaging with this web of life always. And not only is there a field of consciousness, and a field that surrounds all existence, but there's a field that surrounds our body. And within this field is those heavy imprints. So to release those imprints, all we have to do is get to the emotion that got suppressed at the moment that trauma happened, and release it and replace it with that pure essence and essential self. So is that, do you understand? Is that clear?
Honestly, the way that you just described that, it feels so good. It feels so light, and it feels airy. And I personally, like, I needed to receive that from you. So thank you for describing that in detail. Um, I'm always teaching my clients to replace a negative thought with a positive one. And I like that you took it deeper into feeling. You took it deeper into, really directing your attention to that feeling instead of trying to suppress and ignore it. Almost like, ask it a question, like, is this true? Do I need to carry this with me anymore? Am I able to release this? Right?
Yes. And, going into more of like the our world kind of thinking, we have to remember that, we're accustomed to working kind of at the matter side of E equals MC squared. And, that matter side is working from the literal, working from the mental and the emotional. The shaman dances with a foot in both worlds, the visible and the invisible realms. And that invisible realm is the place of the energetic. And what we do is we dance on the equal sign, which is the place of the soul. And so I would even take it a step further. Yes, that inquiry is super important. But when we go to that place of the soul, we go to the place of no words. And so it's accessing it from the place of ceremony and ritual, because what we understand about brain neuroplasticity is that the brain doesn't know the difference between real and imagined. When we're kind of working it and churning it over, affirmations, mentally trying to change things, it's at that dense place of matter where it's twice as much effort. E equals MC squared, right? Energy equals matter squared. So when we go and we do it from a place of that soul, of the soul's expression, ceremony, ritual, doing things where we're changing the way the brain remembers what's been without needing to engage it. So then we can become differentiated just enough that when that experience happens, we can choose another way of dealing with it rather than mentally needing to change it. And what happens is we stop operating from that limbic brain, the survival brain, the neocortex, the reasoning brain, and we come into the prefrontal lobe. And when we come into that prefrontal lobe, what we understand is that that's where we can create new circuits and neural pathways. And when we're there, the cells of the body respond differently, and we can have spontaneous healing where it's just gone. And for me, like my clients where they've spent decades in therapy, in 1 or 2 sessions, we can completely change everything, because when we are in that, we work at that field, and again, this is kind of going a little bit ahead of this question, but you've got an imprint in that field that's the heavy experience that's occurred in your life, and it's working like iron filings to a magnet to attract people and circumstances and experiences into your life. And so it's like our karma is cellular. And this is why we keep on repeating these patterns, because it's that etching, that's the software that's replaying the program of that story. So when we can erase that etching, we then stop attracting it.
Does this tie in with our energetic blueprint that you speak of?
Yes. This is totally working from that blueprint level to change our lives. And so, go ahead.
Can you define that for me, this energetic blueprint?
So again, that shaman has the understanding of that luminous energy field that surrounds the body. And this luminous energy field goes out the length of the outstretched arms, about a foot into the earth, up through the central channel of the energetic spinal column, and is constantly turning in on itself. And so think of it like a cassette tape on record. It's made of luminous threads that anything that is heavy gets etched like a cassette tape on record and starts to accumulate like dust on a lampshade. So, this goes back to the original kind of question that we spoke to. That is where that dust that's accumulated, that's where the distortions are happening, so that we can't hear our own voice and know what we believe, because we've got that etching of, the experience where we were told we weren't good enough, and where we believed it, and where we're not worthy, or we don't even deserve to be here, or whatever those stories are, they're etched. So they keep playing over and over. They're informing our physical body. So, when we work in this blueprint, we can basically grow new bodies and hack into this field to create exceptional states of health and well-being. We can work within this field and travel outside of time to align and program this field to vibrate to that most essential self, so that we're upgrading that energetic software, so that we can come into alignment with that expression, and we scour anything that keeps that higher frequency from happening, so that we can start attracting circumstances into our lives that will allow that expression to come through. So just like a blueprint in a house, if you've got a blueprint that one of the rooms is off, it's always going to be off. But when we can go in and change that blueprint, then we have that whole being, that whole house that works together. And that's where we as shamanic practitioners work.
So speaking of blueprints and what we attract in our future, I kind of want to take it back, because a lot of the women in our course, they've asked about past programming and how we begin to rewire ourselves and learn new methods. So how can we go into answering this question that I know can go several different ways, but this is something that's come up on a lot of our courses, is paying attention to your past programming and how it's affected you to be the woman that you are today, how you do have permission to rewire yourself to things that no longer serve you.
We have to become self-sourcing, so in terms of this field, it's that woven tapestry of luminous threads, right, that the shaman can see, that I've been trained to be able to see. And that is the program. And it holds our past life inheritances, it holds our ancestral inheritances, and it holds the accumulated karmas within this lifetime as well. So it's continuously playing. And this is, this is where we need to recognize that we have full sovereignty to change that program. And it's really what's absolutely necessary. Now you can see, sometimes the programming is so deep that we can't see it ourselves. But what we see is it's showing up in every other area of our life, right? So that's the nature of shadow. If it's so deep inside of us, we can't see it, but it's showing up in the relationships, it's showing up in the job, it's showing up and showing the outside world is reflecting what we can't see in ourselves. So I speak about on a scale of 1 to 10, if something bothers you more than a 2 or a 3, it's showing you where you have healing. I'm going to say it again, from a scale of 1 to 10, if anything bothers you more than a 2 or a 3, it's showing you where your shadow is. It's showing you where your work is. And that's like a really amazing rule of thumb. Now, it's not black and white. So it doesn't mean if somebody's bothering you and they're like, pushing your buttons 9 or 10 that you are that. It just means that you have something to heal around that.
Oh, that's incredible. I've never thought of it that way. And it's very powerful to look at it like that, to look at it as a gift almost of this is what I can choose to work on. And that resonates with me because when I just experienced a miscarriage September 8th, and I was very depressed. I was sad. I was angry. I was mad. And I thought to myself, like, I did the whole why me? Why did this happen to me? And as I spoke with my angels and as I sat in my sacred space and I spoke to them, I kind of felt my energy shift where I said, I can use my story as a way to, 1, heal myself, and 2, heal others and inspire others. There's so many women that have miscarriages in this lifetime, and society's taught us to be quiet, to not speak up. And I said, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to use what happened to me as a gift for myself and a gift for others. So I love what you're saying.
Well, that's it. I mean, our greatest wounds are our greatest teachers. Yeah. The ones who give us the most challenge are the ones that are bringing us closer to ourselves. And it's stepping out of that victim triangle and recognizing nobody can do anything to us unless we have an affinity, unless there's a weakness. And again, this is where this path changes everything about how we walk in the world, because once we can start seeing that, once we could see the beauty and the gift, even in the most challenging of circumstances, everything begins to change. And it really is that the shamans, the shamanic culture speak of walking in beauty, leaving all that we find more beautiful than we found it. And that is even these challenging things, because if we're all energy and we are vibration, then everything that's happening to us is showing us where there's dissonance, where there's, things that are in the way of that purest vibration that we are. And that's where we have to start looking, because as Einstein said, we can't solve the problems we face at the level of awareness that created them. Mm-hmm. And honestly, everything about our education system and our cultural conditioning keeps us very small. If we actually realize the power that we have and the power, to me, that the shamanic path offers, there wouldn't be half the stuff going on that is happening right now in the world. We would be empowered to make a difference and realize that we are the ones we're waiting for, to wake up and remember who we are and the power that we hold, to make a difference and create a world that our children's children are going to be proud to inherit.
I see you, Andrea, and I see a woman who is just so pure and within and is filled with such love and light and the guidance that you choose to do every day, that you choose to offer to people every single day. And one, I want to honor you for that. I think it's absolutely incredible that you do this work. I'm curious as to what experience or what moment in your life inspired you to begin this shamanic path that you speak of.
Ha, wow. Um, so I was just a magical kid, but I had to shut it down. My family environment was totally not supportive of it. But I remember as a kid always seeing, like, I used to call it my dream world. And it was like I could see other realms. My mother, I grew up in New York, and my mom used to take me with her when I was just a baby in the car because she would always get a parking space in New York City when I was with her in front of the building that she needed to go into. But I did shut it down for a really long time. And, I came from the most unlikely background to be able to step into this path. Jewish New York woman with the typical stereotypical Jewish New York family. And I really had to move 2,000 miles away when right before my solar return, or right around the time of my solar return, so that I could find my own voice. I was the problem child that in school where, my sixth grade teacher in his 30-year career wrote on both sides of the report card that I was a born leader, but leading people in the wrong direction. So I think that there was always something that was a part of me that kind of knew that there was something more, and luckily was able, because mentally I'm smart and sharp enough to be able to work the system and get through,
Yeah.
and still maintain my magical qualities. But what led me to this shamanic path was after I did get far enough away from the invasiveness and the influence of really smothering parents that, told me the way it was supposed to be done. I went into deep depression. I went into a dark night of the soul. And it was that led me to the shamanic path. It was my darkest night where I needed tools that nothing was giving me. I mean, on my course page, I say it's like my psychic, my astrologer, my therapist, my life coach were on speed dial. Like that was, I could get one button hit, but it wasn't until I found this path that I really could find ways to heal myself at a soul's level, to align myself. And so that's really, it was like somebody had given me the tools I had used for lifetimes. And even though it seems really, and I think you read this in my bio, even though it seems really intimidating or not relevant to our life today, our soul knows this. This is what our soul is yearning for. So many of us are feeling that call to do something more with our lives. No matter how successful we are. I mean, I lived in New York City. I was in finance. I was making six figures. Didn't matter. I would have died on the vine if I stayed in that life. And so this is answering that call of our spirit.
That's incredible. What called you to the high priest of Peru?
So it was during that time where I was going through the dark night of the soul that I actually was a competitive skier, and there was a woman that I skied with. It was kind of a small community when you're in those resorts. And she was a Chinese medicine, a doctor of Oriental medicine. And so I went to her just to use acupuncture. and she had been on that path, so the shamanic path. In fact,
Okay.
she worked with Alberto Vialdo, who is the founder of the Four Winds Society, which is an organization that trains Western shamanic practitioners. And he did private intensives, like week-long $10,000 intensives, where you had shamanic sessions, you had acupuncture sessions, you had massage sessions, to totally scour that blueprint. And so she was part of that team, and she gave me Shaman Healer Sage, which is one of his books. And when I got that book, it was like, this is what I've been looking for. And so it's through it, Alberto was a medical anthropologist who was in the laboratory slicing up brains to see if we could create psychosomatic health as easily as we could create psychosomatic disease. And so he started his search down through the Americas to the indigenous cultures, because he realized he was looking through the wrong end of the microscope. And when he got to Peru, he met a professor at the University of Lima who was really the medicine man he was looking for, but had the credentials that they needed. And he was able to open up this body of wisdom, which was prophesized actually um, as a body of wisdom that would support humanity at the time that we're living in. It was said that this body of wisdom, through this body of wisdom, that there would be a Pachacudi, a turning over of the earth, where humanity would have lost themselves, and life would be degraded, and we would have lost our humanity and forgotten who we are and our part in that greater web. And that's the times that we're living now. And it's forgetting that connection to everything, that everything is part of this web. If you think about the human body, when the cells of our body go to war with one another, we get disease, we get autoimmune disease, it's cancer, right, in our body. And we are the only species that is not in harmony with its host. And we're basically a cancer on this planet. And it's about each one of us coming back into harmony with ourselves through this web, that we can lift up the rest of the planet. So these techniques that were passed for thousands of years, I call them technologies, they were closely held and only passed down orally. But it was said that when this Pachacudi occurred, that these medicine people were to share what they knew, so that these tools could be used to create what was said to be a golden age of peace that was possible at the time of this turning over. So, your question about, this Peruvian ancestry, it just came to me. And I'm going to say that this is probably something that really all of the ladies in this group need to understand. We've got to call up the search outside of ourselves. The more we do that work, the more we do our inner work, the more we align frequency-wise with who we're meant to be, the more the beauty and the amazing experiences and the blessings and the miracles and the synchronicities will start happening in our lives.
That is so true. I feel like I'm a perfect example of that, because I denied and I suppressed my gift my entire life, pretty much, till the age of 23. It was only 3 years ago. And ever since I opened up to it and I accepted it, my life has completely transformed. I'm I'm a medium, and yesterday I was giving a reading to a woman whose father um, committed suicide, and we were able to give her closure. And had I not opened to my gift, I wouldn't have been able to live that experience with her and give her that closure. Um, and it's incredible, the transformation that one receives when you do look within of what your own story is. It's empowering and impactful, not only for you, but for so many others around you.
Well, that's it. Again, we raised our hand and said we would go through everything that we went through to be able to come and give the gifts that we're here to share. From a frequency place, it's about living in that highest frequency. And so, if there is enough of us who do it, it's said that it's only 1 to 3% of the planet, of the people on the planet need to do it to be able to lift the entire planet up to this new place and this expansion and this really revolution of consciousness that is kind of opening to us at this time.
That's incredible. So I sent your website to one of my close friends, and I asked her if she had any questions that she wanted to ask you. And she said, this is her question: what is the difference between a conscious creator versus an unconscious creator? And can you give me some examples? For example, behavior, mindset, or lifestyle?
So, it's actually a lot of what I just said. When we collude with our cultural conditioning, with our familial conditioning, when we're walking through life like Pigpen with that, cloud around us of all the heavy imprints of the dust that's accumulated of the traumas and the wounding and the heavy experiences of our lifetime, we are sending distorted signals to that field. So that unified field of consciousness that is that web that connects all things is made of and is affected by an electromagnetic force. The strongest electromagnetic force that we have in the human body is the human heart. It's 5,000 times stronger magnetically, 50 to 100 times stronger electrically than any other organ of our body, including our heads, right? So we're rewarded to live in our heads, right? We get, all sorts of whatever perks from, being on honor roll to whatever gifts our parents give us for making honor roll, and this 18-inch journey is the longest journey we will ever take, but we must live from our hearts. And so when we are not aware of this field, when we are not consciously engaging and choosing in as a co-creator of our lives, and we are a passenger, then, and we're not aware of what we are putting out into this field, we are unconscious creators. When we raise our hand and say, I want in, I'm going to do the work that's causing the distortion, okay? Because this is the deal. You can in your heart know who you are and what you're meant to be. But if you have an etching in your field that says you're not worthy of it, that electromagnetic force is going to go through that distortion and your life is going to show you that it's true. And they're going to bring every circumstance into your life to prove it. So a conscious co-creator does her work. A conscious co-creator with every breath is choosing what she's putting back out into that web. Even when you're in fear, even when you're in the deepest despair, you have a choice to magnify it and send it back, or choose to use it as that gift and that lesson and blow beauty back out into the world.
Yes, that is, you are incredible. You are so amazing.
I really, I have to thank my mentors. Like, this is about it. I mean, again, this is spirit doing the work through me. I'm just a Jewish girl from New York. And actually, I'm not a girl anymore. I'm a woman who's going through menopause. Talk about, two things that we don't talk about enough. miscarriages and menopause. The hot flashes are brutal. I think we need to just do a whole segment on that.
It's the next call, ladies.
But really, when we do our work, when we get still enough and quiet enough, when we can scour that energetic blueprint and vibrate to the highest frequency that we are, we become what the shamans call a hollow bone. And then the song of creation moves us in the direction of that heart's frequency. And the wisdom of creation comes through. So there's times where I speak, like I can't make notes for this kind of thing, because I just open space and get out of the way and let spirit speak through me. And you totally get that. I mean, that's your work in the world.
We just let that vessel of wisdom just come through us, those downloads. I completely understand.
Right.
So I want to ask you, this path that you and I have is similar, because we don't go to a corporate job. We don't have an 8 to 5. We're our own masters of our own gifts, right? This is what we do every single day. So my question is, what advice do you have for our Evoke tribe sisters that are healers? We do have a few mediums in this course, coaches, life coaches. What advice do you want to give them so they're not afraid to lean into this untraditional career path?
We all have different ways of bringing it. So I first want to say that sometimes we bring our gifts into these corporate worlds. Okay, so, there is a way, we all have to kind of get in wherever we can. And sometimes that is, I've got colleagues that are working in the corporate world with this kind of thinking and this kind of experience, embodiment. But, this just goes back to everything else I said. Spirit is knocking on our door right now. Everything that's happening in our world, so many of the women in this group, I'm sure, I know my clients are all sensing a call. There's a deeper calling that's happening. This lineage speaks of this time as the time of remembering ourselves again. And that's not only as our nature is energy and our connection to all things, but it's remembering those gifts that we're here to share. And so the answer to your question is really twofold, because first it is, you can continue to do the corporate job, but there's gonna be a sense that something's missing, and your soul is not going to be fed, and the universe is going to kind of bring those cosmic 2x4s until you answer that call. So that's number one. Number two is you need to do that work that is the cultural conditioning. And again, this is what I've spoken to throughout. You don't think you can do it because 9 times out of 10, you're worried about what somebody's going to say or what you're supposed to do and what society sees as right or wrong. But let's be real here. Our paradigm is totally falling apart. What we believe to be real and true, what we're seeing happening on a global stage, is not sustainable. Everything that we have been taught is falling apart. And so it is those of us who actually listen to that call of our heart and answer it, that soul's deepest expression, to clear out everything that is not our deepest truth, to stop colluding with the cultural conditioning and the familial ideals of who we're supposed to be, and start listening to that truth. Because when you do, doors and windows are going to open where walls once stood. Joseph Campbell, right? Follow your bliss. And this is, even if it seems impossible, the more you do the work to scour the belief systems and end all of those things that are in the way between you and what you say you want, the more the universe is going to conspire on your behalf to bring those circumstances that's going to allow everything to just come forward and align in ways that it's like a miracle. They say when you follow your soul's truth, it would take you a miracle to get there. But that's what it is, because when you're living from that electromagnetic frequency, that's where the universe aligns and gives you everything you need. Just like us, right? I had been calling in this type of thing. You're calling in and meditating and asking your spirits to bring somebody who would work, who would be able to answer to this segment, and boom, we aligned in the cosmos before we aligned in the physical.
Oh, I love that. I have the greatest news, ladies. As you can see, Andrea is incredible, and from her heart, just leading from her heart, and you are so inspiring. Thank you so much for sharing your story and for being honest with us and for shedding your light. The good news is that all of you can continue to work with Andrea through her course. She's actually, it's going to begin in November, correct?
Yes, actually, yesterday was my birthday, and my birthday present to myself was to launch the first of 3 online courses that are a combination of live and self-study that allow us to bring these practices in. It said 85% of our work we can do on our own. 15% might be a little bit too close to be able to do it. And basically, I've taken 13 years of my experience on the path, plus 35 years of Alberto's and thousands of years of this body of wisdom, and I've translated it into an online course. And so what I'll do is I'm just gonna, is it okay if I share my screen?
Oh, absolutely.
Great, I'm gonna share my screen here. And we've got all sorts of things coming up here. So move you up. So the first segment is called Shamanic Energy Anatomy 101, and these are do-it-yourself practices to hack into your energetic software, to be able to start to become aware, because really once, and it's something that you had said, it's, with these practices, they call it a practice for a reason. The more we do it, the more we can become aware. So it's practices to hack into your energetic blueprint. I teach ways of reinforcing this field and reweaving those luminous threads. I teach how to reset your fight or flight response and your stress response, because it's so important to do so that we can really have sustainable change within the luminous body and the cells of our body. I teach how to clear the chakras, and is this something that you speak to in your course with your women, right? So those chakras are like the lenses of perception, and that's where that heavy energy starts to accumulate. So I teach how to clear the energy out of that chakra from the place of the energetic and not the place of the mind. I teach how to cut cords and unhook. So many of us are kind of attached energetically, whether it's ex-husbands or past relationships, past jobs, right? So I had an experience where I worked for a yoga teacher out of LA. I was his business manager, and he knew just enough to be dangerous energetically. But I gave my notice a year before I actually was able to leave. And it took me about 2 months straight towards the end of unhooking cords and unraveling threads, that bind us to these old belief systems. So I teach how to cut those cords and unhook those threads and clear literally that thread from its inception all the way out to the completion of that karma, which could be lifetimes from now, to clear that thread completely from your field. I share about more about what shamanism is and what specifically the prophecies from this body of wisdom. I offer myself and two other colleagues that worked with me at the Four Winds that are the top of practitioners, where we all have our own unique gifts that we bring, and I share resources to access sessions with us when you find that you get to places where it's just too deep to work on your own. I have a physicist, and I'm just going to scroll down through my sales page, which I'll share with you. I have a physicist or a former scientist who shares about how science and shamanism relate. I actually have that doctor of Oriental medicine that 15 years ago put me on the path, speaking about how to anchor the changes at the energetic, at the physical, with self-care practices and the 7 key vibrations for optimal health and wellness. It's an audio conference and a PDF and resources with her cleansing and detoxing the brain and body. Because let's remember, even though we've got all these memories somatically in the cells, our hippocampus holds on to these memories. And this is why it's so hard to break the mental patterns. If we can drain that hippocampus from the trauma, and then we're doing all these changes, then that's really where we can start to make some big changes. And then also, I offer a bonus practice in here to create sacred space. And this is where all of the ladies can raise their hand and say to that field of consciousness, to become that conscious creator, I want in. And, where my yoga background comes in, the Bhagavad Gita speaks, where Krishna says to Arjuna, just the smallest offering to me, and I will be there. And this is our way of being able to say, I'm in. I want to start driving this boat, calling to the guiding principles of the universe, the 4 laws of physics, the 4 pair of DNA, the 4 cardinal directions, the earth and the heavens and the highest self. And that's really, a beautiful way to start going bigger, to begin to see outside of ourselves that there is so much more, which just brings us right back in. So the cost of this is a one-time payment of $297 or 3 monthly payments of $108. Also, PayPal credit is available for those who need it and qualify for no interest for 6 months, and that is all on the registration page. I also want to add to this that part of the chakra clearing, I have this really dynamic couple. They're like family, friends who have become family, who speak to the essential oils for the specific chakra, how to use the essential oils properly, techniques and practices to align the chakras that go with that. And then also a PDF that breaks down every chakra, plus in the part of the body where an imbalanced chakra affects, where it's going to show up, how it's going to show up, the qualities and experiences that a balanced chakra brings, as well as an integral inquiry at that literal and mental that everybody can start to begin to work it. So this is the beginning, like I said, of 3 programs that will be launched in the course of the next, I would say, by early spring. All 3 segments will have been launched. And this is practices that you can use for the rest of your life to tighten the field, to tighten that weave, those women who are sponges and feel everybody else's energy. This is it. This is the maps that these people left, and this is my way of bringing it forward.
And it's every Monday in November, right? So how long is this course?
So there's 4 live video conferences with Q&A during those conferences once a week in November, and they begin, and I don't know why this is not, I'm going to reload this because I made some changes. Maybe it's not going to reload here. So I'm going to go down to the bottom. So the live sessions are Mondays in November, November 5th, 12th, 19th, and 26th at 7 p.m. Mountain. They'll be recorded, but I do highly recommend that everybody join to get the Q&A. Within the membership portal, there is we're working on putting in a comment section where people can ask questions and I can answer them within that membership portal. The live will be about, 30 to 45 minutes of actual teaching, and then I will stay on as long as I need to answer the questions that are there. And then there's breakdowns of all the processes, video, audio meditations, PDFs, because everybody learns differently of everything, so that there's a whole library of them. And then lifetime access. So within that, there's the live sessions, and then all of the rest of the stuff that I went through, the interviews with the experts, the video conferences with my colleagues, all of the what is shamanism pieces. These are all self-study, so everybody can go at their own pace. Everybody's busy, so I really designed this to be super easy chunks and digestible. So yeah.
Thank you so much. You can stop sharing your screen.
Okay.
And I just wanted to thank you. This was absolutely incredible. And to all the ladies of Evoke, this would be a beautiful way to continue your journey with spirit. Everyone knows my personal story of my background of growing up in Mexico. And I mean, I never would have thought 15 years ago that I'd be a medium right now. And you've heard Andrea's story of where she grew up in New York and being raised in a Jewish family, that she would not be a shamanic practitioner right now with the odds, right? And
absolutely.
so let our stories inspire you that your past doesn't have to determine where you go or where you're at today. Spirit is always knocking on your door, as Andrea said. So thank you so much, Andrea.
You are so welcome. And I really had hoped to have time to share one of the practices, because the shamanic path is one that can be known and not told. It must be experienced. Think about it like reading a book on yoga and never going to the mat and trying it.
Yes.
And so what I'd like to do, and I don't know how it's possible, but I'll actually send you the audio meditation of creating sacred space.
Okay.
So your ladies can begin to practice and start engaging and saying yes to their journey of opening to that which is outside of them and seeing beyond themselves, to start to engage consciously in the world.
That will serve them every week. We give them inner work, and in the very beginning it was to create that sacred space and to learn how to engage in it. So this will only serve them. So absolutely, I will share that link with them in Trello, ladies. But I honor you, I see you, and I am so blessed and grateful that you did this for us.
Igualmente, hermana. Blessings. And thank you so much, ladies. I so look forward to meeting, to visiting with any one of you who has more questions. And on my website, which actually is not the one that we're showing here, this is just for this specific program, but I'll also pass that on to Braylon. I have free 30-minute consultations. So anybody who wants to reach out, I love visiting. I love inspiring. I love empowering everyone I can, and particularly us as women, because it's time to come and rise and to stand in our power and to clear those wounds that have kept us from really being the leaders. And now this is what that time of turning over is, to go from that patriarchal place to that divine feminine. We know this wisdom. It is in us. We connect through our wombs, through the roots of our yonis, down to the core of the earth, and connect to empower one another. to stand up and use our voice to really be the co-creators of the time to come. And it is about us standing in our power. So I look forward to connecting with any of you who are here and are called to listen in more. So
I will also include your email. Is that the best way to get in contact?
yes, yes, yes.
Your email and the Trello information as well. But thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Just such a blessing. Really honored.